All right, welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. You know, life can be pretty unpredictable. Sometimes things get a little crazy, maybe a little more than we bargained for. We're going to jump into that feeling today, that sense of chaos, and see if we can't find some ways to handle it a little better. We've got some really interesting insights to pull from, all from The Art of Remaining Calm in Chaos.
Right on. You hit the nail on the head. We're not setting out to eliminate chaos altogether. That's just not realistic. What we are going to do is explore how you can find your own sense of peace, even when everything around you feels like it's going haywire.
I like it. So we're talking about weathering the storm, not stopping it from happening altogether.
You got it. And the book uses this great word right off the bat that I think really gets at what we're aiming for: imperturbable.
Imperturbable. Okay, I've heard that before, but just to be sure, what does that actually mean?
Well, it basically describes someone who is super calm, someone who is really hard to shake up or upset, but it's not about becoming a robot, not feeling anything. It's more about finding that inner strength so you don't get totally swept away by everything that's happening around you.
So more like having a strong foundation when the winds pick up.
Exactly. You maintain your center. And one of the first things the book talks about is just recognizing when things are starting to feel chaotic, but then it adds this extra step that I think is key: checking the status of that chaos.
Okay, checking the status. Interesting. It's almost like taking inventory, right? Like, okay, things are a little wild right now, but what's really going on here?
Yes, precisely. Instead of instantly reacting, take a moment to observe. Don't jump into fix-it mode right away. Sometimes that pause, that moment of observation, can be enough to help us see things more clearly and not get caught up in the initial frenzy.
So not letting our emotions run away with us right at the start.
Exactly. And from there, the book moves into a tactic that I think is really smart. It calls it strategic avoidance.
Strategic avoidance. Okay, so this is about choosing our battles carefully, or maybe even knowing when to step away entirely.
You're on the right track. It's about understanding that you don't have to engage with every bit of chaos that comes your way, especially if it's not something you can directly control or if it's likely to resolve itself on its own.
Right, sometimes it's better to protect your own energy and peace of mind. Don't jump into a pool of stress if you don't have to.
Exactly. Now, this next part, when I first read it, it really made me think. It's called The Paradox of Non-Intervention.
The paradox of non-intervention. Okay, that sounds a little like a contradiction. Isn't the point to try and fix things when they go wrong?
Well, that's what's so interesting about this. The book argues that sometimes stepping back and not trying to fix things can actually be the most effective way to, well, fix things. It's about letting the natural consequences play out.
So sometimes letting things unfold on their own can reveal the root of the problem.
Right, and it can also help the people involved learn from their own mistakes. I know it can be hard to watch someone struggle, but by giving them the space to figure things out, you might actually be doing them a favor in the long run.
It's about empowering people to solve their own problems instead of always jumping in to rescue them.
Exactly. Now, what about those situations where the chaos is completely out of our control? Like it's just happening and there's nothing we can do to stop it.
Life definitely throws those curveballs, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What does the book say about handling that?
It uses this really vivid image, riding the chaotic wave. It acknowledges that it's going to be a bumpy ride, there's no way around that. But instead of resisting it, fighting against it, the idea is to accept that it's happening and find a way to move through it, even if it's uncomfortable.
Okay, I like that. Riding the wave instead of getting crushed by it.
And finally, to tie all of this together, there's a really powerful quote the book includes from Ernest Hemingway, the American writer. He said, "All you have to do is write one true sentence. Write the truest sentence that you know."
Hmm, that's interesting. It's a quote about writing, but I can see how it might apply to dealing with chaos too.
Right, and that's what I love about it. It's about finding that one thing, that core truth that you can hold on to when everything else feels like it's falling apart. It might be something like, I am safe, or this will pass, or even just, I am breathing.
So it's like finding an anchor in the storm, something to ground you when everything else is swirling around.
Exactly. That truest sentence becomes your point of focus, your reminder that even in the midst of chaos, there's still something solid you can hold on to.
So to sum it all up,
Uh-huh.
in this deep dive into the art of remaining calm in chaos, we've talked about cultivating inner strength, that imperturbable state of being. We've talked about observing chaos before reacting, knowing when to step back and when to engage. And we've even touched on accepting what we can't control, like riding that wave.
And through it all, we've got that powerful idea from Hemingway, finding our own true sentence to ground us when things get tough.
It's not about eliminating chaos from our lives completely. That's probably not going to happen. It's about changing how we relate to it, becoming more resilient so we can navigate those inevitable rough patches with more grace and composure.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, for everyone listening, think about a time in your own life when things felt really chaotic. What would your truest sentence have been in that moment? And how might some of these ideas we've explored today, like taking that pause to observe or stepping back instead of jumping in, how might those have changed your experience of that chaos?
Hmm.
It's really about taking these ideas and seeing how they can help you weather those inevitable storms that life throws our way.
That's a great takeaway for everyone to consider. Thanks for diving into this with me today. It's been a fascinating discussion.
Absolutely. And thanks to all of you for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time.